This video presentation is brought to you by the Pro Mathematics Academy. Welcome back to this video presentation brought to you by the Pro Mathematics Academy, of course, right? And we're continuing our series on trigonometry. In particular, we now look at when and how to use the cosine ratio. Okay, so we start by looking at examples, and we'll be taking example 1 and 2, which will demonstrate how to use the cosine ratio to solve for the missing sides. And then for example number 3, we'll demonstrate how to use the cosine ratio to solve for the missing angle. All right, so we jump right in, right? So for this example, notice that we are given the x as the hypotenuse, and here 7 meters represents our adjacent side. So unlike the example with the sine ratio, we now have the hypotenuse and the adjacent side. Okay, so let's make a note of that, right? So here, using the formula, let's write down our formula. Cosine of the angle theta is equal to the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. Okay, so this is the formula that we'll be using throughout this episode to solve all of these problems. Okay, so here we'll say that the cosine of 20 degrees is equal to 7, because that's the adjacent, divided by x. Okay, so taking this, we want to jump over on our calculator to plug in cosine of 20 degrees. Remember to ensure that your calculator is in the degrees mode. Okay, so the cosine of 20 is actually equal to 0.939692621, being equal to 7 over x. Now we transpose for x, which means x is equal to 7 divided by 0.939692621, which is equal to, we go back to our calculator and plug in this value, and we end up with 7.449. Okay, approximately. And don't forget, we need to always include our units. So here this is in meters. So we just used the adjacent side and the angle to solve for the hypotenuse. Next, we look at example number 2, which gives us the hypotenuse and the angle, and we can use this to solve for the adjacent side. So let's write down our equation. So we have cosine of 75 degrees is equal to y divided by 15. Okay, so we now plug in cosine of 75 on our calculator, right? Calculator gives us 0.2588 approximately is equal to y divided by 15. Now I want to transpose for a y. This means 0.2588 multiplied by 15 is equal to y. Okay, so this means that 3.882 approximately is equal to y. So here we can say that y is equal to 3.882 kilometers, right? So notice here that we have the 3 terms for the formula. Well, actually, we have one of the terms from the cosine formula missing. Okay, so that's what we need to look at. So if we have the angle and the hypotenuse, we can find the adjacent. And if we have the adjacent and the angle, we can find the hypotenuse. So let's jump into example number 3, right? Which says that we can use the cosine ratio to solve for the missing angle. Here I'll draw up our triangle for us, right? And this is a right triangle, of course. Here we have our angle theta, and we have the hypotenuse, which is equal to 70, and we have the adjacent side, which is equal to 35. Okay, I want my units to be centimeters. So now we can use these 2 measures to figure out what the angle is. So let's write down our equation. So our equation says that the cosine of theta is equal to the adjacent side here, right? Notice that this side would be the opposite side, but what we have is the adjacent side, so that's what we need to make a note of. So since we have the adjacent side, we have to use the cosine rule. So that's 35 divided by 70. This implies that cosine of theta is equal to 0.5. Okay? So if cosine of theta is equal to 0.5, then theta is equal to the cosine inverse of 0.5. So I go to my calculator now, and I press the second function, right? And I type in 0.5 of cosine inverse of that. And now I end up with theta being equal to 60 degrees. Okay, so let's put a summary here. In summary, the cosine ratio can be used to solve for the missing side, and the ratio can be used to solve for the missing angle. Okay? That is it for this video. Please remember to hit the notification bell, like, share, and subscribe for future post notification.